to get it in. Does to Smith. Jabari for three and the win. Yeah! He got it!
We are here to fuel your Rockets news. This is the Rockets Fuel podcast, and we are happy to be back for another episode today as we will be recapping the training camp that just wrapped up yesterday, and we also will be previewing the game. We actually have some game action coming up on Tuesday versus the Pacers, so we'll be previewing that at the end of the podcast. But before we get started, definitely want to let you know, of course, I'm Lachard Binkley. You can always find me on Twitter at Binkley Hoops. And, of course, you can always find my written work over at the Dream Shake. I did a recap of the first 3 days of training camp, so definitely make sure you check that out. And, of course, as you see, I am joined by my co-host, Vator. How's it going?
Hey, what's up? It's good to talk to you, man. We have Rockets basketball coming back, so I'm very excited. I'm sure a lot of people are excited. This seemed like an unusually long offseason.
Yeah.
I think part of it was because we were so excited about some of the stuff we saw in Summer League with Jabari. You know, Tari kind of like did his thing, and then of course Cam Whitmore. The one game we got of Ahmed Thompson looked phenomenal. So I'm just excited. I can't wait for Tuesday. And anyway, you can find me on Twitter at Vator Sports. You can also find me on IG for your Rockets-related news. I also post Texan stuff and then a little bit of Astros. And shout out to the Astros. They played first playoff game today. And so here we go on another drive to another championship, hopefully.
Yeah, real quick on that. I think we may have mentioned a little bit last podcast, but you have the Astros in the playoffs. I think the Dynamo made the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they just won a cup. The Dash, they made the playoffs. That's the women's soccer team. And then, of course, you have the Texans, who all of a sudden are, if I'm not mistaken, all four teams are tied at 2-2 in their division. So they have a chance to actually win the division. And, of course, they play again tomorrow. So you have all these exciting things going on. And, of course, the Astros winning their division, and now they're about to play their first playoff game today against, Carlos Correa and Minnesota Twins. So that's really exciting. So there's a lot of exciting things going on in Houston. But, of course, we are a Rockets podcast, and we're going to be talking about the Rockets. And the first thing we want to talk about is the training camp that just wrapped up. I was out at the first 3 days of training camp, kind of taking in everything they were doing out there in Lake Charles. So they had one more day yesterday that they finally wrapped up training camp and headed back to Houston before their open practice tomorrow for the fans, where they're going to kind of be probably talking about some of their new designs that they have for some of their possibly logo and different affiliations they have going on with Hyde Park and things like that. But of course, it's really about the fans being able to see the players. A lot of fans being able to see the players for the first time on the court. And then, of course, they have the game on Tuesday. But before we get too deep into it, why don't you kind of just give your overall thoughts on what you saw at training camp, some of the things that you may have heard some of the players talk about, the coach, Ime, talking about after the practice. What was kind of your overall thoughts on the training camp?
So obviously, for me and for most of us who were not privileged enough to be in Lake Charles to see the stuff live, we had to rely on the 10 or 12 minutes of video footage that guys like you, guys like Jackson or whatever were able to get for us. So, like, hey, if you haven't checked it out already, Lachard has already uploaded a lot of stuff on the YouTube channel as far as like video footage and interviews like of the players. So, yeah, check that out. It's some really good stuff. So, based on what I've seen, from that limited footage, I mean, Cam Whitmore looked really good. He as a guy who is as young as he is, a 19-year-old, I am not thinking that he is going to be part of the rotation early. I think Ime Udoka is probably going to go heavy veteran-laden lineups early just to try to, get this team, to establish the culture, establish the way they want to play. To go out there and actually be competitive and win basketball games. But I am hoping and hopeful that Cam Whitmore is starting to like catch his attention and become a guy who is like, man, I got to figure out how to get this guy minutes, because we saw him going to the basket, getting those dunks off. We saw him operating in the mid range. I saw a video clip of him hitting a corner three. So I just kind of see him scoring at all three levels. I saw him make a nice little skip pass to the corner. I think it was to Dillon Brooks, who knocked down a three off of that. And that's probably one of his biggest weaknesses right now is the tunnel vision thing. Him being able to, not just go out on the floor and create for himself. We know he can do that, but play within the confines of an offense and be, at times a good connective piece, because he's not going to be the focal point here on this Houston Rockets team. If he goes down to Rio Grande, obviously he'll be able to put up 30 points. Probably.
Yeah.
On this team, he's going to have to find a role and play a role. So hopefully he's carving out a little niche for himself, and he's turning some heads. And it's still early in the process, but he's a guy who I hope at some point in time we'll see more of as the year progresses. Tari Eason, in the video I saw doing Tari Eason things. He's just a hustle player. He's a hard worker. I saw some nice stuff from, and people are not gonna like this, I saw some good stuff from Jayshawn Tate.
Yeah. Yep.
And like if you need a perimeter stop on this team, I think him and Dillon Brooks are probably right now. As far as putting them on a guard, on a point guard, on a shooting guard, on a small forward, those Jayshawn Tate and Dillon Brooks look like two guys who are going to go out there and make those players on the other team actually have to work extremely hard to initiate whatever they're trying to initiate or get a shot off for themselves. So he looked pretty good. Let me see. Alperen Sengun, I know you had posted on Twitter, on X app, whatever it's called now.
Whatever.
That he was dominating large portions of the practices. And I think some other people who were there also said the same thing. So that's some very encouraging news. Alperen Sengun is out there, but also who is guarding him though? You know what I mean? I was thinking about that too. I didn't say anything, but like,
so it wasn't Jock Landale wasn't guarding him for the most part. I think a lot of times Jock was kind of rehabbing his ankle. So it was really most of the time it was really Jeff Green that was guarding him. So I don't. Of course, you can't take a lot from that because Jeff Green's not necessarily known for his post defense, but at the same time, from what I saw, Sengun was doing the exact same thing he was doing last year. He was active in the paint. He was able to get to wherever he wanted to in the paint. He got a couple and ones in a row in day 3 training camp. So he was definitely the most dominant inside player. Again, yes, he wasn't playing against Joel Embiid or anybody like that. But at the end of the day, training camp, you're not really looking for who he's going up against. You're just kind of looking to see if he's still fluid, if he's come in shape. And he's definitely in shape. He's definitely already regular season ready. So whatever you saw in that training camp, you're going to see in the regular season because there's not too many people that can really stop Sengun in the post. We saw it the last couple of years.
I think the whole thing with Sengun especially last year, was just the utilization of him. Like, how are we going to deploy him? Because, I've seen him. We know Jeff Green is no match for him in the low post. We've seen him when he had LeBron James on him. LeBron James is a good defensive player, but he's no match for Alperen Sengun in the post. Alperen Sengun, as far as a post-up player, I don't know what percentile he's in, but I know whatever it is, it's good. I've heard some of my friends or whatever talk about it who are like really heavy on the stats and stuff like that. And like Sengun is a good post-up player, so it doesn't really matter who's on him. I was just thinking to myself in my head, like, because of the fact that he was out there against guys who probably don't stand a chance at all of defending him. He is so good. That probably played a large part into why he was so dominant in those scrimmages. Whereas a guy like Jalen Green is going out there and he's having to be defended by, now, which is a good thing, depending on what the matchups are, a Dillon Brooks or a Jayshawn Tate, or and even some circumstances, maybe even Amen Thompson or whatever. So just the competition level from a defensive perspective is just kind of what I was thinking of. But like, I'm big on Alperen. I think, and we'll talk about it later, but the fact that he's been working on his 3-point shot, he is going to be a huge problem offensively. And I think and I don't think that was ever an issue. I think the whole thing was whether or not he could do the things defensively that would make him, upper echelon player in the NBA. And from what I've seen from some of the clips, I mean, there was this one particular clip where I saw him get in front of Amen Thompson on a drive and draw a charge. There was another clip where I saw him get in front of Amen Thompson on a drive and force a steal. So like he's doing some different things in this Ime Udoka off defense. and I like what I've seen so far. So I'm very encouraged by that. And speaking of Amin Thompson, I mean, these highlights that we've seen the last few days, I won't say that I'm surprised by them at all, because I'm not. But the no look passes, the way he's manipulating the defense with his eyes. I know some people don't like the fact that he jumped in the air to pass the ball, but there are guys in the NBA who are very adept at that. Tyrese Halliburton is one of them. If you are able to do it, I mean, it's just it's a feather in your cap. And so, like, I've seen videos of him completely shifting the defense out of position, like 2-3 guys at a time, and eye manipulation, body manipulation, and then he's hitting an open guy cutting to the basket for either a layup or a dunk. That kind of stuff gets me really excited, because I know during the regular season that type of stuff is going to translate. And then the one thing that we don't know yet is going to translate, but really got the internet buzzing, was the pull up 3-pointer on Fred VanVleet. Like, he hit a dribble move, he hit a step back off the dribble, and he pulled up and he knocked down the 3-pointer, and it was nothing but net. And like, if Amin Thompson can develop any kind of outside shot, I mean, good luck to the rest of the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, and again, you won't really know until you're in an in-game situation, but the form looks better than it did even during Summer League, even though we didn't see a lot of it during Summer League, and even better than his time when he was playing with G League and Night. I mean, it looks better. It looks less of a hitch. It's more fluid. Now, of course, again, it'll be a totally different story when you're actually playing against pressure defense and it's in-game and it's a lot different atmosphere. Then we'll really be able to tell. We'll start really being able to tell a little bit more during preseason. But just from what I saw, watching them, standing there, watching them, even just shooting free throws, because we know a lot of times free throws kind of translate to how you're going to be as far as a shooter as well. And just overall, it just seems like a more fluid shot. It's not like the little hitch that he used to have before, where it was kind of almost like a hesitation when he would shoot. It's just a more fluid, kind of just one motion type jump shot, which I think, and he mentioned this as well, that he's done a lot of work on. He think he's improved on it. We know he's worked a lot with Ben Sullivan, who did a lot of work for Boston. I mean, we saw what he did for players like with Derek White, who definitely improved from his time when he was with San Antonio to when he came with Boston. So I think you're going to see an improvement throughout the year. It may not just be all at once. He's not going to come in and shoot 38% from three or anything like that, but we're going to see improvement from what we saw when he was playing, like I said, in the G League, and then when he was playing with the Rockets in Summer League. So that's just definitely something to keep in mind with that. But yeah, even like you was talking about with Sengun, he was definitely dominating. A lot of times they had him at the high post running the offense. We also saw him also kind of not spotting up, but out on the perimeter and letting other people handle the ball. And then he wouldn't hesitate. He would actually just take the shot. And again, like you said, we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up here soon. But just overall, Sengun looked a lot more active. He may say he's not going to put him in drop coverage as much as he did last year. The Rockets did last year when Coach Siles was here, and we definitely saw that as well. He's more aggressive on the pick and rolls. He was coming out. He was actually forcing the ball handler to get around him instead of dropping all the way back, and then he was still able to recover enough to actually get into the play and defend the person trying to go to the basket. So that was good to see that they're going to make him more aggressive on the pick and rolls and actually put pressure on the ball handler, because we know when you're playing a lot of drop coverage, that just opens up wide open shots left and right in the mid-range, and the Rockets were getting killed on that last year. So you definitely want to see more aggressive Sengun on defense. He's never going to be a great shot blocker, but he can play position defense exactly the same way that Jokic does. He's not as big as Jokic is, most people aren't, but he can be in the right positions to where, like that play you mentioned earlier, where he was able to get the charge on Amin Thompson. A lot of times, getting a charge on somebody is actually better than getting a block, because you're getting a foul on that other person that may come in handy later in the game. So there's different ways he can play defense to where he's not going to be out there like a Jaren Jackson Jr. who's blocking shots left and right. He's going to be able to play position defense, and I think that's going to help him in the long run. One of the players that you mentioned earlier that I definitely want people to keep in mind is Jae'Sean Tate. I know a lot of people were down on Jae'Sean Tate just because, the style of play that he has, and sometimes he may tend to over dribble, or he may kind of seem to be out of control. But the defense he was playing out on the perimeter on Fred VanVleet, that definitely stood out to me. It was one play where he gave Fred VanVleet all kind of hell, and if we end up turning the ball over on the baseline, that's something that you still need on this team. And he still has to hold, swerve, whirling, turn around over his shoulder layup that he was still doing. So he's still going to give you that. And he's still going to give you the good post up game. But Jayshawn Tate, even with Reggie Bullock here now, he's still going to have some type of role on his team because Ime loves those type of players, those hard-nosed type of players that don't necessarily always have to have the ball in the hand, but can make plays on both sides of the court. So that's going to be something to keep in mind that Jayshawn Tate is still going to be getting playing time on this team.
Yeah, I personally, like, I don't want to see Jayshawn Tate play because of the fact that I want to see Cam Whitmore. But if I'm just being realistic, and if we're trying to win basketball games, I think Jayshawn Tate he's bringing something that's going to contribute to winning right now. And we saw that with the defense that he was playing was phenomenal. Like, I saw him, like you said, he beat up Fred VanVleet. I saw him play some really stellar defense on Jalen Green and some of those clips. He's a dog, and we found that out his rookie season because wasn't there a report that came out that
him and James Harden,
James Harden got into it at practice and James threw a basketball at him or something because he was defending him so hard. And then later on that year, you also there was Carmelo Anthony who came out and he was like. He came out to the media and he was like, "Yeah, there was this guy on me." I'm like, "Who is this dude that's that's playing this defense on me?" And so Jayshawn Tate still has that, I think that with the disorganization and the just kind of the chaotic offensive scheme that we were trying to do, he kind of got outside of his role and he started to try to do too much. But maybe there is a role for him as long as he can play within the confines of that role. Maybe we can see again the version of Jayshawn Tate that we saw his rookie season when we were like, "Oh man, this guy is good." Like how is he not on the NBA roster already? Rather than the guy that we were like, "Oh man, why is he dribbling so much? Why is he shooting so many shots? Why is he not passing the ball up in the open court?" Jalen Green is streaking down the court. Why is he not passing the ball? We saw there was a difference between first year Jason Tate and second year Jason Tate. So I'm thinking with better coaching and with a more defined role, we might get good Jayshawn Tate again. So I haven't completely written him off. I would rather see Cam Whitmore play just because of the upside and the excitement. You know what I mean? Or even Reggie Bullock brings a 3-pointer to the table, which Jason Tate has not yet proven that he can. Knock down open threes. Unfortunately, if he could knock down open threes, I mean, he would make himself a lot of money. I mean, because he can handle the ball. He can pass a little bit when he's not having the tunnel vision. He can make basic passes. Let's just say that he can score around the basket. But the outside shot is something that's eluded him so far. So hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, Ben Sullivan can also do a little magic with him, and then. We didn't talk about Dylan Brooks. I mean, Dylan Brooks has kind of been as advertised, right? He's a guy that's going out there. He's bringing some much needed leadership to this team as far as telling guys, how to do it, how to be a professional, and maybe that sounds ironic, but a lot of the stuff that he does is kind of shtick to me, to get under the opponent's skin. As far as the stuff that he did last year in Memphis, but I think he's going to scale that back a little bit. He even admitted, that. Maybe he needed to, scale some of that back. But as far as knowing his role, knowing his assignments, I think he's as advertised. He's what they paid all that money for. And I think that his work that he's doing so far with a guy like Jabari, and we talked about this a little bit off camera. I think Jabari, his work, he's obviously a hard worker. The Rockets Twitter posted in their Instagram posted a video of him lifting weights, and dude is jacked. He is in there. He's lifting weights. He has Jabari is in there along with him. But I think the way that he's really going to help Jabari is film study, how to prepare for a game, how to be a professional, how to know what your opponent's strengths and weaknesses are. And we talked, and you kind of alluded to this a little bit with Sengun. He's never going to be a dominant defensive player, but part of being a good defensive player is not all physical attributes. It's film study, and it's knowing your opponent. It's anticipation. And I think Jabari and Sengun aren't necessarily super elite athletes, right? They're not like the upper echelon. When you think of like who are the best athletes in the NBA, you don't necessarily think of Jabari, and you don't necessarily think of
Yeah.
Sengun. They're good athletes, but I think the way that they're going to make their money and the way that they're really going to be like and prove themselves to be good defensive players is like having guys like Dylan Brooks around who can show them how to study film. Like we had guys like Shane Battier and Chuck Hayes.
Yeah.
We would not. Neither one of those guys were like leapers. They weren't dunking on people. They weren't like
Yeah.
doing. They weren't high flyers, and they weren't super athletic. But both of those guys were excellent defensive players. And part of
Yeah.
it was the instinctual things, and part of it was all the film study, and also just working hard and being a pest. And I think that Jabari, especially him working this summer on his flexibility, I think that's going to help him a lot. And then also with Sengun, just having a guy like that in the locker room with you, and then having an Ime Udoka also there to kind of teach you some of the ropes. I'm expecting to see a lot better defense from Jabari this year and from Alperen Sengun.
Yeah. And speaking of MA, we're going to actually play a clip from an interview they were doing after practice where they were talking, where MA was talking about Jalen Green playing more off ball this season and how that will benefit him and why he can play more off ball this year because he has a lot more help, players that can actually get him set up. And then right after MA talks, Jalen's going to be talking about the same thing about playing off ball. So we're going to play that clip and then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about it and what that can mean for the upcoming season.
Look at the people we brought in. Obviously, Fred is great at doing his job and getting guys involved. Alp can initiate some. And then we want multiple handlers, guys to rebound and go. And we have guys like Jabari getting out, Tari and all those guys as well. And so Dylan as well. And so he's not going to have the ball in his hands as much as he has in previous years, but there are ways to utilize his skill set and as well as keep him aggressive when he does have the ball. And so, like I said, it's kind of equal opportunity offensively, but trying to find where he can pick his spots as well.
I don't mind it at all. I mean, whatever it takes to win. I mean, at the same time, I was off ball my rookie year, arm ball, my second year. And, we're going back to off ball. I understand how to play that. It was all part of a learning lesson these first 2 years. So, whatever I got to do to win, I'm willing to do it.
So, of course, like I said, you saw there, they were talking about Jalen Green playing more off ball this year because last year we saw that the Rockets were trying to make Jalen more of a playmaker, more of a facilitator. We saw a lot of time where he was bringing the ball up and he had to basically make his own offense, which some instances that's fine. But if you're doing it too much, we all know from James Harden days that defense are able to key in on that. And Jalen Green, even though he's getting to that point where he could possibly be an all-star, there are a lot of people like James Harden, especially Rockets James Harden, who can pretty much carry the entire offense on his shoulder and still get his own basket. So you need other players around you to make it easier for you. And that's what they got in Fred VanVleet now, who's going to be the facilitator, get him in the right spots. Yes, VanVleet may not be a prototypical point guard who's going to get you 12 assists a game, but he's going to be able to get players in the right spot. And I think you're going to see Jalen Green with the ball in his hands less. Doesn't necessarily mean he's going to have less shots. It's just going to mean he's going to have more quality shots this coming season.
Yeah, I think I kind of liked seeing off-ball Jalen Green his rookie season. I think earlier, the early part of the season, we didn't like it that much because he spent a lot of time in the corner and we felt like he wasn't getting in rhythm. And I don't think that's what they're talking about. I think they're going to have like design plays where he's going to come off of pin downs and different type of actions where he's going to get the ball and receive it in a place where he is most efficient and where he can score. Because what we did see last year was, like, I enjoyed watching him cook. I enjoyed watching him break people down off the dribble and kind of like develop that part of his game, because I do think as an elite shooting guard in the NBA, you do have to, when the playoffs come around and, you need a guy to go out there and get a bucket, you need to have that in your bag as well. So him spending that year last year developing that, I'm not too I don't hate the fact that happened. Unfortunately, it did tank his efficiency. Like his counting numbers were pretty good. I think he was like 22 points a game.
But his shooting percentage went down. Yeah.
But his the people would point to like things like his true shooting percentage and his shooting percentage, like you said, going down. and then they tried to make it seem like he had a bad season. And what I will always tell people is, the way he got his shots year 2 was completely different from the way he got his shots year 1. And so you it's not an apples to apples thing, and that's kind of the problem sometimes when you start looking at stats. Everybody looks at these stats, especially these days. Like we didn't probably grow up on stats like that, like
oh no,
box scores and stuff like that. So, you know, all of these like advanced metrics and advanced statistics and stuff like that, where they don't always tell you the full picture. They give you an idea. But if you actually watch the Rockets, and like we did, like we probably watched all 82 games, either live or went back and watched it. You saw that Jalen Green's shot diet year 2 was completely different from his shot diet year 1. Like shot diet year 1 was definitely more off ball. Shot diet year 2, he was going out there and he was getting a lot of stuff off the dribble. And you know, those are just, you know, going to be less efficient shots. He took a lot of shots also with the shot clock winding down, that were kind of like bail out the team shots. Yeah. So hopefully, you know, this upcoming season, you know, with Fred VanVleet running the offense, having a more, I guess structured offense, where guys kind of like know their defined roles and know what they're supposed to be doing. I'm expecting his percentages to shoot back up. Past what he did rookie season. I don't know exactly. I haven't really thought about where I think he's going to land, but I do feel pretty confident, you know, after watching him play last year and then kind of seeing the stuff, hearing Ime Udoka talk and seeing kind of some of the stuff that they're trying to do with him. I think his percentages are going to be more in line with what people were expecting to see from him in year 2. And I think that is going to put him back in the conversation with guys like Anthony Edwards. Because, like, if you look at their projections, if you look at what they did in their rookie seasons, he was very comparable to Anthony Edwards. And then when you look at their year 2s, even though the counting statistics are pretty similar, his efficiency is a little bit less than Anthony Edwards. So when you try to compare, like, Anthony Edwards to Jalen Green, people get really like, oh, no, Anthony Edwards is way better. Jalen Green is nowhere near the type of player Anthony Edwards is. And they completely ignore like some of the stuff that like the stats. And I know I just kind of like poo-pooed on the stats a little bit, but like Anthony Edwards and Jalen Green's statistics year 1 and year 2 are pretty similar. The only difference is that Jalen Green dipped his second year from an efficiency standpoint.
And he didn't have a Karl Anthony Towns with him as well, or actual team.
Right, you got to look at the players. You got to look at the players around. Like Anthony Edwards just had a way better supporting cast than anything Jalen Green has had in his first 2 seasons. And then also, like I said before, you know, not to sound like a broken record, but the way that they used Jalen Green last year was very different from the way they used him in the first year. And I will also argue that even though I like to watch it, the statistics also point out that Jalen Green is better off of the catch. He's better off the catch than he is off the dribble. So when you start working things into the offense to get him the ball off the catch, to get him pin downs, and to get him, you know, run him off of screens and stuff like that, Iverson cuts, things of that nature, that is when Jalen Green is at his best. And so I think Ime Udoka knows that, and he's going to start like doing more of those things in year 3.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's definitely something you want to hear. You want to hear that, you know, they're not going to be forcing Jalen to try to get his own shot. And a lot of times when we look at these players, we have to, like you said, we have to keep in mind that the Rockets had basically no structure the first couple of years. Last 3 years, you can say, yes, Silas had a big part of that, why they didn't have a structure, but they also just didn't have the good enough players to have that structure. Just to be honest, not necessarily not good enough, but they were just too young and didn't have enough experience to know exactly how you're supposed to play the game on a day in, day out basis. So now you have that structure. Now you have those vets. Now you have a coach that has already been there, done that, even though it was just 1 year, but he's already been to the NBA Finals. And he's also coached under some of the best coaches of all time. We know that he had a lot of years with Pop, and we know how, you know, people that work on the Pop, we know how they end up being as head coaches. So the Rockets finally have their structure in place. They finally have a plan in place that they're going to stick to, that they're going to actually be trying to win. It's not just about player development. It's about actually winning games. And when you're trying to actually win games and you're not just worrying about hey, I want this person to develop into this player. You're trying to actually go out there and win games. You're going to see a whole different atmosphere around the Rockets, and you're going to actually see a more structured offense and not just a, hey, we're just going to go out here and let this guy run the play one time and then everybody else is going to be standing in the corner. You're not going to really be seeing that with the Rockets this year. You're going to be seeing a lot of pin downs, a lot of players coming off of screens. You're going to be seeing Jalen Green shooting a lot more mid-range this year and not just people just standing out on the three-point line just waiting for somebody to make a play. So I think, like you said, yeah.
And I think he brings a credibility on to piggyback on what you're saying. I'll let you finish. But like the fact that you've coached Jason Tatum and you've coached Jalen Brown and you actually like put a plan in place that actually made them better. I think that the year Ime Udoka was there, I think you could argue that was Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum's best overall seasons as NBA basketball players, as far as like a mix of scoring and a mix of like getting their teammates involved, and then the success that they had that led them on that NBA Finals run. So you can always point to that, and I think that just brings like his voice. I think is just going to bring some credibility to like, just trust me, like Jalen. I know you can do this, and I know you can do that. But like if you just trust me, you're going to be better, and I'm gonna put you in the best position for you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. And then like of course you're gonna be able to go off script sometimes, and you're just gonna go out there and be Jalen Green and go between the hezzy tween and all that kind of stuff and shoot some fadeaways, because all the greats do that, And I'm not comparing him to them, but the Jordans and the Kobes and those guys. There were times where you just give them the ball and you just spread the floor and let them do what they have to do. But like you can't do that for 48 minutes in a basketball game and be successful, and especially in a team game, because like what are the other guys doing? And I think we saw that a little bit in the James Harden era, and it was kind of good. That's why when Chris Paul was here and he was on still like an elite player that first year, you just kind of saw where it worked. But you had like two all-time great guys who like Chris Paul and James Harden are just like, as far as like being able to score and being able to make the right play, as far as like getting other people involved, like you haven't seen too many guys like that in the NBA. So to put that on Jalen Green in his second year was kind of it's probably too much of a burden for him. And I think Ime Udoka is gonna like he's gonna put him in the right positions. I'm pretty excited about seeing. I'm really interested to see. I know the first preseason game is probably not a great indicator of how they're going to use him for the rest of the year, but I'm really excited. That's one of the things I'm going to be looking at is how much is Jalen Green going to be dribbling? How much is he going to be like actually running around? Like maybe Steph Curry is a bad example because he runs around a lot, but like. I mean, how many plays are we going to see where we see like Jalen Green just kind of like using that speed to his advantage and running off some screens and then getting open that way? And then you have the defensive player pursuing you and having to close you out as you catch the ball, and they're completely at a disadvantage, and they're just kind of at your mercy. Those are kind of things I want to see starting Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, they're definitely going to have more structure in place, and I think we're going to see a more structured offense to where it's less confusion and people looking at each other like, well, you're supposed to be there and you're supposed to be there, because at the end of the day, like you said, Ime's going to demand that respect. Van Vliet's going to demand that respect. Dillon Brooks are going to demand that respect, and the Rockets really haven't had that where, hey, what I say goes, and there's not going to be any other way around that. Before, it was kind of like, hey, everybody's trying to develop this player, and yeah, he's going to do this bad, but we're going to let him continue to do that because we're trying to develop him. That's going to go out the door now. So if you're not doing what you're supposed to do, I think that these people are going to step in and you're going to see a difference on the court. Before we wrap up the show and get to actually previewing Tuesday's game a little bit, there's one more clip we want to play where Alperen Sengun here is talking about being able to take that open three with confidence, because we know last year, and it was actually a question I asked Silas last year about, do you kind of encourage him to take that open three? Because we know teams absolutely will prefer him to take that open three. They left him open. They would clog up the lane and let him shoot that shot. And a lot of times he would hesitate, which will then cause the offense to kind of get out of sorts, because then you're scrambling, trying to get up a shot the last second. But here Sengun actually talks about his confidence now in taking that open three compared to last season.
taking an open three compared to your first couple seasons?
For sure. And team, actually, I work all summer, like I said, and then now my teammates is telling me and my coaches is telling me we need you to shoot, and it didn't happen last year like this, But now they telling me to shoot, so I feel more confident right now. Because I work all summer also.
How much of
So like you hear there that Sengun was saying that his coaches and teammates are encouraging him to shoot that shot this year. So again, I had some pushback with people like, well, he don't really need to be shooting threes, need to be down in the paint, because he's a big man, blah, blah, blah. But this is 2023. Every big man needs to at least have the threat of being able to hit that shot, because at the end of the day, teams are going to clog up the lane. Jalen Green's not going to have as much room to operate. Fred VanVleet, whoever it is that's handling the ball is not going to have that much room to operate if teams are not guarding Sengun out on 3-point line. He doesn't need to go out there and shoot 36% from 3-point range, but he has to be able to at least be able to make teams have second thoughts about leaving him wide open out there. And even if it's just 2 shots a game, if he's wide open, he has to take that shot, because teams are not going to guard him, not going to respect him until he takes that shot. And if he's able to shoot 33, 34% from 3, that opens up so much more of his game, because now defenders have to run out there at him. And we know that Sengun has good enough handles to where he can get past defenders and get to the basket. And if they're running out at him, that opens up a lot more of the Rockets offense to where he can get to the basket, draw a defender, and then now somebody else has a wide open shot. So that's going to be, to me, that's the biggest evolution for Alperen Sengun on the offensive end, is to be able to at least consistently hit that open 3. We're not going to be running plays for him, or the Rockets not going to be able to be running plays for him like we just said with Jalen Green, where he's running off of screens. But if he's got that open shot, he needs to absolutely take it with confidence.
Yeah, I think we've seen, like, he can do everything offensively. We just haven't seen him like be a 3-point shooter. He can score in the post. He can dribble for a 6'10", 6'11" guy. We've seen him bring the ball up the court and make these crazy passes or make these dunks and stuff like that. Like, he can do everything offensively. The one thing that he hasn't really shown a consistency doing offensively is shooting, and that was probably because he was kind of discouraged from taking the outside shot. But I think he even finished last season at 33%, if I'm not mistaken. So, like, he has a good touch. He has shown that he can make that shot when left wide open. I think his wide open percentage is actually very good. And so, like, I don't begrudge him. I want him to take that shot. I've been saying it for like the past 2 years. I want him to shoot those wide open threes. When you found out that he was actually being deterred from shooting them, I was actually very surprised, because we still had other guys, and I won't name names, but we had other guys who were going out there finding 3-point shots. He probably shoot worse than Alperen Sengun. Who, like, at the end of the season, if you look at their statistics of who like was a better 3-point shooter, these guys were not better than Alperen Sengun, and they were given a green light. And then we also had a guy like Christian Wood, a couple seasons ago, who was allowed to shoot the threes, and we saw how
he wasn't hesitating.
he was taking them all. He wasn't passing that at all. Once he got the ball, that was it. And so I just thought it was odd that you have this guy who has pretty good form on his shot, who has a soft touch, and who's shown that he can knock them down when left wide open. Like, why would you not encourage him to shoot more of them? And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing Alperen Sengun shoot the 3, because I think that will probably, I won't say complete his evolution as an offensive basketball player, because he's going into his 3rd season. But I think you might start to look at his ceiling a little bit differently. If he's a guy who's going to go out there and also stretch the floor for you while also being a dominant post scorer, and while also being a very good passer and a decent rebounder, and then if he can, play, like we were talking about earlier, play defense with that, like, is able to, like, leave him on the basketball floor during, playoff situations, high pressure situations, you have a star in your hands. And I think that's the defensive thing, and then maybe the outside shooting is probably the only things that I think you could, like, really look at him and say these are like knocks against him. So if he can even be decent in those 2 areas, he's probably an all-star. Maybe not this season, but I think somewhere down the road, you're looking at a guy who is a cornerstone, a foundational piece. I think he can be better than Sabonis. I know saying that last year at some point in time, people thought that was kind of blasphemous. But I watched Sabonis a lot last year. I watched him in the playoffs, and I think Sengun has a little bit more stuff to his game, to me, in my opinion, than Sabonis. He's not there yet. But if you look at like where they developed over the years and like first year, second year, third year, and all that kind of stuff, Sengun looks very favorable. And then if you just look at their games and look at the way they play, I think that Sengun, like Sabonis isn't really he's not a low post scorer. He's a good passer.
Yeah.
He can do stuff out of the high post. He's worked on his outside shot, but like I just think Sengun has a little bit more, some more tools to his toolkit, I would say. And so like I'm excited to see kind of what they do with him, because we don't really. This is the thing, Lachard. Like we don't really know what we have with some of these guys. We kind of have an idea. Yeah. I think I know what Jalen Green is. I kind of think I know what Sengun is. I'm 50-50 on what I think Jabari is. I saw like some things from him at the end of the season when he just was like, when I get the ball, I'm just gonna do what I want to do with it. He just looked like he was just deciding to like play the way he wanted to play. And so this season is huge. This is a huge season for a lot of our young guys. A lot of the guys that we were counting on. I feel like I know who Tari is, because Tari is gonna be Tari no matter where he is. That's just how he is. Like he is just going 100% effort. But like guys like Sengun and guys like Jalen Green and guys like Jabari, who probably would have benefited from a little bit more structure and having some veterans around them, this is going to be huge. I think this first half of the season, we're going to kind of know, can Jalen Green be this alpha scorer that we were hoping he could, that he was advertised to be? Can Alperen Sengun be a guy who can be an offensive hub that we can run offense through? Is Jabari Smith Jr. going to be, a guy who's going to be able to knock down threes consistently and play, solid defense, and then maybe add some other things to his bag, as he gets older. So we got a lot of questions this season. That's why it's kind of hard to predict the win-loss record. I don't know. I know Fred VanVleet and I know Dylan Brooks are like really looking like solid additions to the roster. And it was funny because I think somebody even asked him about James Harden, asked Emi Udoka about the James Harden situation, as far as like, why didn't you want James Harden? I know that's not how they asked the question, but he just said, he said that he felt like for the construction of this team and for guys like, Jalen Green, some of the young guys on the team to reach their potential, he just felt like Fred VanVleet was a better fit to help those guys get where they needed to be, And so I don't know, man. What do you think as far as like wins and losses this season? I know right now it's kind of hard to predict because we haven't seen the product before yet. But what's your gut feeling? What are you thinking?
I mean, my gut feeling is the 35 win range. Gut feeling. Now, of course, that could change because, again, like you said, we haven't saw them on the court. We haven't saw they interact. We don't even know what other teams are going to do. We may be some teams that we think they're really good this year that turn out they only get 30, 32 wins. Right. So it's kind of hard to predict, especially since we haven't even seen a preseason game yet. But if I had to guess, I would say around the 35 win range, which is a 13-game improvement. Not a lot of teams have a 20-game improvement in 1 year. So I would say around 35 if everything goes great. I mean, perfect, no issues. Players play to their potentials, and Fred VanVleet goes out there and gets back to his all-star form and shoots 40% from three, then maybe you're talking about a 40-41 win team. But if I had to say right now, I would say 35 wins would be, I'll feel pretty comfortable with that mark, which, again, that's a pretty big improvement compared to where they've been the last few seasons. But would I be shocked if 41 games? Yeah.
People are going to think we talked about this beforehand because somebody asked me this yesterday. I was at work, and they's like, what do you think the Rockets record is going to be? And I said, low end, I'm thinking 36 wins. I'm thinking high end, if everything goes right, 40 wins. And so you basically said 35 to 41. So we kind of locked in on that. Like, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like low end, I'm thinking 36 wins, which is 14-game improvement over last year, which is a lot. And then I'm thinking if everything kind of like clicks and these guys are like fit together and the moves actually work, then these guys are starting to hit some of the ceiling that we were hoping they were going to hit. I'm thinking 40 wins, and I think 40 wins gets you into a play-in. I think it
gets you in competition, yeah, because that's what it took last year. With around 41, around 40, 41 wins to get in that back end of the play-in, yeah.
Yeah, so that's funny because we kind of like we hadn't even discussed that, but
yeah, we hadn't talked about that, so I think we on the same page as that.
Similar range, man. So
yeah,
I'm looking like Tuesday. Tuesday is the beginning, a new era of Rockets basketball.
Yeah. And before we wrap it up, I want to just real quickly talk about Tuesday. Just what's one thing that you want to see from the Rockets on Tuesday? Not necessarily win or loss, because we know preseason wins don't really matter. The Rockets won preseason game last year and the year before, and then we saw how that worked out. But what's one thing that you want to see from the team on Tuesday?
I want to see them making an extra pass. I know we got a bad reputation of being like this one-on-one basketball team.
Yeah.
The guy who's not going to be here, it was kind of, and Jalen, it was kind of like the your turn, my turn type of basketball. At least that's what people kind of like branded us as. I didn't see that necessarily all the time, but and I know one of the things that they talked about heavily when we brought Ime Udoka in was that he convinced guys like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to make and Marcus Smart, for that matter, to make the extra pass, to be unselfish.
Yeah.
The ball has energy, it'll come back to you. Don't be selfish. So I want to see like an unselfish brand of Houston Rockets basketball. And then as far as like individual players, I really don't really care about like what Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks do. I kind of have an idea. Those guys are veterans. Like we know what they bring to the table. We know like when they tip off, game one of the regular season, what's going to happen. But some of these younger guys, under the Udoka system, like Amin Thompson, for example. I mean, he's been the talk of the internet for the past 2 days. I want to see him go out there and show those flashes that he's been showing, like in a real life game situation. I want to see if that shot translates, and then just to see how Jalen Green is playing. Is he taking to the coaching? Is he playing more off ball like they said he was going to do, and is he receptive to it? And if so, how does that look? Does that look like, oh, shoot, are we really seeing like the emergence of like this superstar talent? Because he has all the talent in the world. It's just a matter of him being consistent. Like, I don't know if you've ever looked at his home and road splits. This just came to my attention like pretty recently, but his home splits and his road splits are kind of like crazy. There's a huge discrepancy there. So if he is, hopefully if he's more comfortable in doing what the things that he's being asked to do, hopefully that'll translate more as well when he goes on the road, because, there's just like a comfort factor there. So those are two guys I want to see. I'm thinking, Jabari, Summer League. Is Summer League Jabari real, or is it fake? Because we saw like Summer League Jabari look like, Summer League Jabari look kind of crazy. And so those are probably like the three guys that I want to see the most. Obviously there are other guys on the team, but just as far as individuals, those are the three that I'm looking at, that I'm going to be like paying keen attention to.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting just to see how it all works out. The one thing I want to see is if they're going to have that defensive intensity, because at the end of the day, if they're able to become a better defensive team, that will make the biggest difference on what their win-loss total is going to be, because your defense, like we know, should never go in a slump. You should be able to be a good defensive team no matter what's going on with the rest of the team. So that's the one thing I want to see, is how good their defense is, because we saw a lot last year where they had the absolute worst defense in the league. I mean, it was a point, I think, where they played Sacramento 2 times in a row, then they played the Clippers right after that, where they gave up like 120, 125 points a game in that one little stretch. And that kind of symbolize how their defense has been the last 3 years. So that's like the main thing I'm going to be watching, is how intense are they on the defensive end, even though it is just a preseason game. But it'd be really interesting to see how that works out. We're definitely going to be covering that game. I'll be out at that game on Tuesday. We'll have some more footage like Vator mentioned earlier. We'll have some more interviews up on the YouTube page, so make sure you subscribe to our YouTube page. We're going to have a lot more exclusive content coming out with that. We're going to be covering all the games. We'll definitely have another podcast coming out next week. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, that like button, because that definitely helps us be able to continue to put out these videos every week, because we want to continue to provide that input and provide the content every single week, because we know that there's a lot of Rockets fans out there. We know that you can get your content from other sources, but we definitely appreciate y'all coming here to get your opinions. Put in the comments whatever you want to put in the comments, and let us know what you do like, what you don't like about the show, or if you just want to talk about Rockets. We always appreciate that. So again, Vator, appreciate you jumping on with me today.
Yeah, I'm excited, man. The season could not come come soon enough, I should say.
Yeah.
And then we have the like we said earlier, the Astros play today.
Yep.
So go Astros, and then of course the Texans are currently on a 2-game winning streak. So hopefully the next time we talk to you, hopefully they'll be on the 3-game winning streak, and CJ Stroud will continue to look like the rookie of the year. And that's pretty much all I got. But like Lachard said, thank y'all for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Like, there's a lot of podcasts out there, a lot of different people putting out content. So the fact that you tune in with us every week, we don't take that for granted. So keep coming. We appreciate you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Like Vader said, we appreciate the support, and make sure you check out the next episode of Rockets Fuel Podcast.